Hey guys, Steven here, and welcome to part 5 of my U-Bass Blues course. So far we've learned how to walk a bass line over a 12-bar blues and play different patterns applied to the 12-bar blues. And then we've also learned turnarounds and endings. So now what's left but to spice up the rest of our lines with some walk-ups. So walk-ups sound kind of like this. And they're used in specific places within the 12-bar blues to kind of keep the momentum going and to keep the song from sounding too stagnant. Now you do want to use them sparingly depending on the type of song, but they can come in handy a lot in making your bass lines sound more professional. What is the most common walk-up that we can do? Well, it's between the 1 chord and the 4 chord. So in our 12-bar blues, we usually stay on the 1 chord for 4 measures and then go to our 4 chord on the beginning of the 5th measure. So the walk-up will happen from the 4th measure into the 5th measure. So let me just demonstrate that. I'll play a pattern, one of the ones we're familiar with from maybe the second part of the blues course. So we're going to play that pattern 3 times, and then we're going to do our walk-up, and it'll sound like this. Okay? And then you continued the pattern from there. Basically, the end of that walk-up was the start of the next pattern. I'm going to do it one more time so you can hear it in context. Walk-up. Okay? So you get the idea, and then the 12-bar blues would continue from there. So what am I doing for that walk-up? Well, basically, on the downbeat of the 4th bar, I'm playing the root of the 1 chord, because we're still on the 1 chord in the progression. So in our case, we're playing in the key of G, so I'm playing the 3rd fret on the E string, because that's a G note. Then once I play that note, everything else is just leading into the next chord. So our next chord is the 4 chord, which is a C note, the 3rd fret on the A string. So what I do after playing the downbeat with the root of the 1 chord, that G note, then I'm going backwards from our target note, which is this new C note, right? 3rd fret on the A string. So we need 3 beats to get there. So I'm going to go backwards 3 frets. So let's just do the math here instead of like counting like this. Let's go, we're on the 3rd fret, and we want to move 3 frets back. So 3 minus 3 equals 0, which means we're going to go back to our open string. So that'll be our 2nd note of the walk-up. So we've got our root note of the 1 chord, 3rd fret on the E string, and then we have our open A string, because that's 3 frets back from the note we're trying to get to. Now it's just a matter of going up 1 fret by 1 fret without skipping any until we get to our target note. So that means our walk-up is going to be 3rd fret on the E string, because that's our root note of that chord, the open A string, then the 1st fret on the A string, 2nd fret on the A string, and finally we land on the 3rd fret on the A string. And that's the 1st note of our 4 chord pattern. Okay, so once again, you can memorize the frets, and that's great, but if you want to be able to do it in a different key, we just need to memorize this concept of you're going backwards 3 frets from where you're trying to end up. And this also makes these walk-ups work in different places within the blues, like when you're going from your 1 chord to your 5 chord later on, or even your 4 chord back to your 1 chord. But I do want to stress that you want to use walk-ups kind of sparingly, because if you do too many of them, it'll stop sounding as bluesy, and it might start sounding more like you're doing a jazz walking line. So just to demonstrate what I mean by that, I'm going to throw in all the walk-ups that I can and then kind of explain them one by one. But chances are you would not want to throw all of these into the same 12-bar. You would use them sparingly, like maybe this one that we just went over, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, you'd use a lot. But later on, some of the other ones you might only use to cue the ending of the song, for instance. But here's how it would sound if you throw them all in there. Let's play this walk-up one time together before we do that, though. So here we go. The walk up we just went over, and then we'll do it in context. 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice I'm not using all of my fingers. You can, but I want to end up with my index finger on the C note at the end of this, on the 4-chord note, root note at the end of this. So that's why I'm just using my index finger to do these walks. They're outside of our normal grid, so I'm just doing that to get there, not really worrying about which fingers I'm using. You're welcome to use other fingers just as long as you get back to your pattern. So let's do this in context one time together. So that means I'm going to play the first 3 bars of the 12-bar blues, which is just that pattern 3 times, and then we're going to walk on the 4th measure, and we'll continue going into the 5th measure and stop there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you keep going from there. Okay, so now let's just be crazy, and I'm going to play it kind of quickly, but I'm going to throw in all of the walk-ups that I can think of, and then we'll go over each one of those individually. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully you can hear how busy that sounded, and we don't really want our blues line to get away from the pattern that far. But we can do our walk from the 1 to 4 like we already did. Another common one is after you're on the 4 chord for 2 bars, you walk back into the 1 chord, which really means we're only playing the 4 chord 1 bar and then doing the walk up. So we've already gotten to our 4 chord, now we're on a C chord, right, doing that pattern. We just do it 1 time instead of 2 times now. And then we'll do this walk up. So it's basically the same walk up that we did to get into the 4 chord, only instead of doing that walk on the A string, we're now doing those same frets on the E string. But the concept of the walk up, you're just playing the root note of the chord you're already on, and then everything else is leading into where you're going. So we're on the 4 chord, we're playing that C note, 3rd fret on the A string, and then every other note is just walking us in, and the word is chromatically, not skipping any frets until we get to the 3rd fret on the E string. So after the root note of C, we're going to play the open E string, because that's 3 frets away from where we're going. Then the 1st fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the E string, and now we are back to our 1 chord as soon as we hit the 3rd fret on the E string, which is our G note. Okay, so let's do that one in context. We'll play the 4 chord 1 time, and then we'll start the walk up. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. Okay, and so forth. So that one's not quite as common, and usually if you've done the first walk up into the 4 chord, it may be a lot to also do that one. There are certain songs that do walk this busily, but they're few and far between. So once again, the most common walk that you will use the most is the first one we went over in this video, going from the 1 chord into the 4 chord. The 4 chord back to the 1 chord. It might be fun to throw this in a solo section where the lyrics aren't happening, so the songs, there's not some other part that's super busy and you're trying to bolster the guitar solo, which means if it's more energetic, then you're also able to be a little bit more energetic there and provide some momentum under the guitar solo. So that's where I would throw some of these other walk-ups in. That would be measure 6 going into measure 7 of the 12 bar. And then going from the 4 back to the 1 chord. And then from the 8th measure into the 9th measure, we can go from the 1 chord to the 5 chord using the same idea. Okay, so our 1 chord is G. That's the 3rd fret on the E string. And the note we're trying to get to at the end of the walk-up is a D note, which is 5th fret on the A string. So what I'm doing to figure out the other notes of the walk-up after playing that root note of G is I'm taking that 5th fret and I'm subtracting 3 frets from it. 5 minus 3 gives you 2, so that'll be the 2nd fret, and then we're just filling in the gaps. 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, and boom, we're onto our 5th fret, ready to play. And you can kind of do the same thing. Since we're going to be doing a pattern here, you don't have to use the grid in this case. You can move your index finger to each one of these notes on the walk-up if you'd like. So let's do this one. I'm going to play measure 7 of the blues, which is the 1 chord, and then measure 8, I'll start the walk-up from the 1 chord going into the 5 chord. So that'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's do that one together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so one thing about this walk-up, in some songs, you don't want to play this too early. Every now and then a song that's kind of dramatic that you're not doing as many walk-ups in will use this walk-up to cue a stop on the chord following it. So that'll be when you go from the 5 chord to the 4 chord. So a lot of times when you go into an ending like that, you might go stop 2, 3, 4, and then play one of the endings from the previous lesson. So in that case, you do not want to play this too early in the song, and you may want to get a feel for the song to see if it makes sense to, or if it feels like it's going to be really dramatic and might accidentally cue the other band to do something, like in the song. So be careful with that one for that reason. But usually in most busy songs, you can get away with doing that once again underneath the guitar solo, and it's probably okay. It probably won't cue the ending there if they know that the vocals cue the ending or something later. Okay? And then from the 5 chord back to the 1 chord, you can do a very similar walk-up as to when we did the 4 chord back to the 1 chord. So, let's see. This one kind of works in conjunction with the 1 chord going to the 5 chord. And then on the very last measure, on the 12th bar, we can do this walk up to lead back to the beginning. To me, it's like instead of doing an ending, we can do these 2 walks back to back as kind of part of the turnaround. So let me demonstrate maybe with the last 4 measures of the blues. So we've got our 5 chord going to our 4 chord, going to our 1 chord, and in this case, we'll go back to our 5 chord, and then we'll be starting the blues over. So that's our 5 chord, our 4 chord, then our 1 chord, walking into 5, back into 1. So that last measure, we're playing the root note of our 5 chord. So that's going to be the 5th fret on the A string in this case, it's a D note. And then everything else is walking back into that root note of G, which is 3rd fret on the E string. So we go 3 frets backwards from there. 3 minus 3 is 0. So we get 0, 1, 2, and then you're back to that 3rd fret root note. We're walking into the 5. Now we're walking back into the 1 chord. So hopefully that makes sense. That one's not as common, but it is a way that you can kind of keep the energy going. Once again, underneath the solo might be a best place for this. It might be a little distracting underneath the singer during the vocals of the song. So you may want to wait until a guitar solo, something with a little more energy that's a little bit busier than the vocals, so that you're not pulling away from the vocals. Unless they're really dramatic, sometimes you can get away with it, but this is better in a solo section. So once again, use that one sparingly. And the one that you can use the most is the first one we went over in this video. So if you get nothing else from this video, use that one walk-up and then combine it with the endings that you already have. And you don't have to use that walk-up every time around in the 12 bars, only when the energy kind of calls for like, oh, okay, we're building up a little bit. then that's a good place to use it. But some songs kind of remain at a lower energy level, and you don't want to overdo it in those cases. So hopefully that makes sense. So those are the walk-ups. Let's talk about a couple of walk-downs. One of them can be a little bit similar to the walk-ups in the sense that we're going to go 3 frets away from our target note. It's just instead of going 3 frets below in pitch from it, we're going to go 3 frets above in pitch and walk down. So it doesn't work in as many places in the blues. So a good place to do this walk-up would be going to the 4 chord back to the 1 chord. So in our 12-bar pattern, this would be measure 6 going into measure 7. So before we were doing a walk up, but now we're going to replace that with a walk down. So we're going to start on our 4 chord, that C note, 3rd fret on the A string, and then we're going to do this. So this is less common, but it's still something you can do. So our root note of the 4 chord is C, 3rd fret on the A string. Then we're trying to get to our root note of the 1 chord, which is 3rd fret on the E string. So what we're going to do is we're going to add plus 3 frets to that. So 3 plus 3 is 6. So we're going to go to the 6th fret, 6, 5, 4, 3. And we're going to walk down without skipping over a fret. 6th fret, 5th, 4th, and then we land on the downbeat of our next measure, ready for the pattern again. So in context, I'll play the 4 chord. This is from measure 5 of your 12-bar pattern. So I'm going to play the 4 chord pattern once, and then do the walk down. So let's do that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep going. And then I'm just adding a walk up for no reason. Okay, so anyway, we don't have to keep going that far into it. You get the idea. That is, in that place, you can do that. And then this also works in one other spot, and that's when you're going from your 1 chord to your 5 chord. So you have to go from the upper octave, which is a little bit different. So let's say we're on measure 8 going into measure 9. It's going to sound like you're on your 1 chord, usually, and then you're going to your 5 chord. But what we're going to do instead, we could walk up, but we could also, since we got to the end of this pattern, we could walk down. This is also a G note, 5th fret on the D string. It's an octave up, but it's still a G note. So what we can do is we can play that note and then do this walk down to land on our 5 chord. So what I did there was I played the 5th fret on the D string, and then every other note is getting us to the 5th fret on the A string, and we're doing that by going up 3 frets from that note. That's our target note. So we're going to go 5 plus 3 gives us the 8th fret, 5 plus 3. And with these walk downs, I think it is good to just kind of have your pinky go to that note and then lead to your index finger being on the target note. But hopefully you can get these concepts down, and then you can kind of mess around with which fingers you think are best to use depending on the pattern of the song that you're playing, because it might differ if you're starting on your middle finger for the pattern, right? So, okay, so we've got that one. So let's start from measure, let's see, if that was measure 9 going into measure 8 going into measure 9, let's start on measure 7 so that we get 1 chord. Then we can do that walk down into the 5 chord. So let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're on your 5 chord, and so forth. Okay, so we're good to go there. And then there's one other kind of walk down we can do, but this one's a little bit of a different concept. So this one works really good going from the 1 chord into the 4 chord. So this is in the same place where we do our most common walk up. So this one's also fairly common, but it's a walk down. So let me just play it in context from the beginning of the piece. Okay, and then so forth, we're into our 4 chord. So this will happen on measure 4 in our 12 bar form, going from the 1 chord to the 4 chord. We just finished our pattern. So now we're on this G instead of the low G. We're on 5th fret of the D string. We'll play that note again. Then we'll go 2 frets down from there. Then we'll go 1 fret down from there. Okay, so what that'll be is the 5th fret, then the 3rd fret, then the 2nd fret of the D string. Then we'll play the 5th fret of the A string, and then we'll land on our 4 chord from there. So that would be our 3rd fret of the A string. So let me just tell you the frets first. 5th fret D string, 3rd fret D string, 2nd fret D string, 5th fret A string, and then you'll finally land on your 3rd fret A string to start the new pattern. So this one does work pretty well to use a grid. It's kind of different. What I want you to do is just look at what the frets are doing. You're starting on your root note of the 1 chord up the octave. You're going backwards 2 frets, then just going back 1 fret from there. Then when you get to the next thickest string, you're starting on the same fret that you started the walk down from, if that makes sense. And then you end up on your 4 chord. So when you move it to new keys, you might have to think about it geometrically, like what are my fingers doing in relation to it? How many frets am I going down? What am I going back to? So that might be kind of tricky. The other way to think about it is you're walking down the scale of the chord you're ending up on. So I'm going from a G chord to a C chord. I'm starting on a G, but I'm pretending I'm in the C major scale. And I'm just walking down G, F, E, D, C, just using notes of the scale that we're leading to. So that may be really confusing, but let's try to play it in context anyway. We'll start at the beginning of the 12-bar blues form, play our original pattern 3 times, and then on the 4th measure we'll do this walk down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2nd measure. 3rd. Here we go for the walk down. Repeat the note. Walk down. And then you're on your 4 chord. Why not? I'll do one of the different walk downs. Okay, so you get the idea. That's kind of how it sounds in context. So I've done another video on this topic where I called it blues walk-ins, because you can walk up or you can walk down and you're walking into the new note. So I'm going to link that video up here because it has a little more detailed breakdown of the walk downs especially, but I throw them all into the blues form all at once, which is something you really don't want to do unless you're underneath a guitar solo and trying to keep it really busy to keep the energy up. So just know that and check that out if you want to go further into this idea. But really the main walk up and walk down that you want from this video is the one that goes from the 1 chord to the 4 chord, from measure 4 going into measure 5. So hopefully that helps you guys a little bit, and it'll spice up your lines and help you sound more professional when you go to these blues jams or when you go jam with your friends and you're playing some blues songs. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time for more blues.